7 Gupta companies are still under business rescue. Is there any hope that these companies will ever be revived? And what of the employees who have lost their livelihoods? Well, to discuss this, we're joined by eNCA reporter Janke Tolmay. Janke, thanks very much for coming through. I mean, we're talking about, what, 7 companies altogether. What's the hold-up? Why is there this delay?
Well, the business rescue process is quite challenging on its own. Obviously, you take over a business that is in distress. But specifically in this case, the business rescue practitioners who took over these 7 companies, since the banks closed the accounts of the businesses linked to the Guptas, they've faced about 44 court challenges up to date while they were trying to do their work. So you can understand this was obviously already a difficult process, but then they also faced but how they would describe it, dodgy bidders trying to buy back the companies, different court challenges trying to remove them specifically. And as I've mentioned, it was some of these businesses were in dire straits following what we now know is state capture and some of the business dealings from this controversial family. At the moment, all 7, as you've mentioned, are still under business rescue. Some of them are making progress. One, unfortunately, has been liquidated. That is VR Laser, which means about 250 people lost their jobs. The other one is Tegeta, and under Tegeta falls, for example, Optimum Mine and Quinfontein Mine. These are still possibly going to be sold, but again, we are facing legal challenges in this case. We understand that tomorrow they are going into arbitration because Charles King, as you might remember, was that Swiss-based company that was also allegedly linked to the Guptas. They still believe that they have a right to buy these 2 mines. So the business rescue practitioners do not agree with this. They have other credible bidders that they believe need to take over the mines. So they will be going into arbitration tomorrow to resolve that.
But I mean, even with all the challenges, some of which you've just alluded to, do the business rescue practitioners, are they positive that something will come out of it eventually and hopefully sooner rather than later?
Well, I asked that to Louis Klopper, who's the business rescue practitioner, and we'll see it in a clip from him now. He did say that, unfortunately for VR Laser, those 250 employees, they've lost their jobs. They weren't paid for a couple of months. They are hoping to get back their salaries that they are owed, but this is also due to a legal process. This has been outstanding. But what Louis Klopper told me earlier today is that they dare not fail, because when it comes to some of these mines, tens and thousands of people's lives could be at risk if this is given back to this controversial family.
Okay, let's have a listen to what he had to say.
What is owing to the Bank of Baroda. Because the Bank of Baroda had their security in place before the advent of business rescue, the law normally says that the proceeds of those sales should go to the Bank of Baroda. However, the employees, upon advice from their legal sources, has taken a different view in saying that their interpretation is that the employees' salaries owing to them is owing to them under the post-commencement finance provisions under Chapter 6 of the Companies Act. And their argument is that the proceeds should go to them, rather to Bank of Baroda, who held security over all the assets and debtors and so on prior to business rescue. Well, right now there's a legal dispute, which at the end of the day, the 2 parties, through their various legal representatives, should resolve that dispute.
So the law pretty much on the Bank of Baroda's side, but of course we're talking about thousands of workers who have been affected, in fact, already.
Well, in this case, that's the Bank of Baroda is in the case of VR Laser, where they hope that because VR Laser sold their assets, there's about 40 million rand available. But according to the law, it normally says that it will go to Bank of Baroda, while the employees feel differently. So that's one legal dispute going on. The one on Optimum's side is whether they want to buy, whether this Charles King controversial company that's still allegedly linked to the Guptas want to buy the Quinfontein and Optimum mine, where there will be thousands of people affected at the end of the day.
And your ANN7s and New Age and so on?
That is linked to a different company called Island Site Investments. It is one of the 7 companies still under business rescue. They are linked, they're property companies, and they are having, or they need to sell some of the properties that they own in order to pay their creditors. Now, we do know that the company was sold to Money a while ago, and that they took over the business, but the property still belongs to this Gupta-linked company. So next week it will be auctioned off, and the hope that the proceeds of that sale could then go to some of the creditors still owed under the business rescue process.
Now, the workers that you've spoken to from some of the 7 companies that are involved here, what do they have to say? How are they coping?
It's been pretty hard for them. As I mentioned earlier, that when the process started, there wasn't any money available to pay their salaries. So for a couple of months, I think it's about 4 months, they didn't get any salaries at all. After a while, they managed to get access to their unemployment funds, which we understand is not a lot. So they are living on that now, but they haven't been able to get work yet. So it's bad, it's still bad, and we don't know when it's going to get better.
Maybe we should hear what some of them have to say.
We've asked for all the open doors, but there was no help in anyhow. If it affected me in such a way, even now, I can't afford to buy myself decent food. And I've been working for, as I'm saying, for 10 years. My life was ruined in that couple of 6 or 4 months without pay or any income. I was suffering badly.
The rescue practitioners are saying, well, there's still hope at the end of the tunnel.
There is still hope. They said they dare not fail, especially in the case of the Optimum and Kroonfontein mine. For VR Laser, they hope that the legal dispute will at least get them the salaries that they owed.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Thanks very much, Janke, for speaking to us. She's been following that story. 8 Gupta companies are involved, but 7, of course, of them are still under business rescue. And as Janke has just said, the rescue practitioners are still very much optimistic in spite of extreme difficulties that eventually the workers especially will be taken care of with whatever little that there may be still left.